Welcome to Extra Time. Here, a soccer fan walks into a bar where we will take a weekly look at each and every opponent for AFC Bournemouth this season. Starting off with match day 1, the season opener is Manchester City. All right, welcome in to our studio down here at Newburgh Brewing Company. We are chatting about the start of the Premier League season as it pertains mostly to AFC Bournemouth. So we have brought in a guest of ours to preview the opening match at Manchester City at the Etihad. We have Zach Van Buren with us. Zach, how are you?
I'm better that I've had a little bit of distance from Sunday. It was absolutely that was not the way we wanted to start. Yeah. I mean, it was the results of those matches, those fixtures are historically you sort of don't want to win them, but you don't want to look amateurish.
Yeah,
and it was just horrendous. I was trying to think about the last time. I think I turned to somebody right upstairs while watching that, and I was trying to really rack my brain the last time I saw City play that poorly. And I was in my head, I was going back to Stewart and Eriksson. I'm going back to Gareth Barry captain teams, right. Richard Dunn captain teams. I'm like, I don't know.
It really has been quite some time. Yeah. So let's jump right into that. Sure. No, that's perfect. Generally, what we like to do here is preview, or talk about the last few matches. Obviously, on the heels of the World Cup and this being the opening match, not a ton to talk about, specifically from Bournemouth's side. They have looked good in their preseason friendlies, but preseason friendlies are friendlies. So, there's hope there, but not much to grasp onto and bring forward. As for Man City, we just talked about it briefly. The Community Shield, Man City being last year's FA Cup winner against Arsenal as last year's Premier League winner, a 3-0 drubbing, and let's call it what it was.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah. And it does kind of, we actually talked about this a bit briefly the other day upstairs, during the game. They didn't look great in their last couple matches either, when they still had a bit of hope, to catch Arsenal. But then once that was gone, it was just, it was a totally different squad.
There's these theories about history. There's a great man theory, right? People think that history is formed by these, bombastic and dynamic and transcendent individuals. And there are a lot of people that push against that. And I just, I've always been of the Howard Zinn model that, it's people that make history. It's plurality. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I'll tie this in because it did feel like ever since sort of Pep was inching towards the door, it just seemed like the floor of the soul of the team has just fallen out. Right. And I don't know how it's going to get clawed back. I think it will, but I can't anticipate how. I mean, results would be nice, but some sort of cohesion. But it just, you're absolutely right. At the tail end of last year, it was really lackluster. And it was even weirder than lackluster. It was rather impotent.
I was going to say they went out with a whimper. Yeah. Not, it's one thing to I even if it was the same scoreline, if Man City was going after it and hit a couple posts, or Raya played the game of his life and there was energy about it, we might feel differently about it for Man City's sake. But it wasn't there.
There was nothing to see. I mean, when I say there's no positives, I mean there were almost no positives. Yeah. I mean. It reminded me of, being in playing varsity soccer and in Brooklyn in the 90s. And, it was a little bit freewheeling. And, some of us would sometimes get together, 8 or 9 of us would get together and go down to Prospect Park and take on a bunch of total randos. City looked like the randos, Arsenal looked like guys who had, played together for years, and City just looked like completely off on every step. And I mean, for the casual fan, or maybe not so much the casual fan, it was an incredible reminder of how cohesion, understanding, that intuitive sense of where your teammate's going to be buys you that extra, or rather, I should say, when you don't have it, you lose that 1-2 tenths of a second. And that 2 tenths of a second is where the whole game is won and lost.
Especially at this level. Yeah.
I mean, you saw how many balls were just kicked out of bounds. It was like, I remember I turned at one point in time. I'm like, this is like USA Belgium.
Yeah.
We couldn't hit a 4-yard ball.
No, it was not a good look for you guys. On that, obviously it's a very long season. You can't win the league in August. So let's talk about some of the.
You might be able to lose it though.
You definitely can lose. Maybe not August, but September, October.
Sure.
Which brings me to my next point. Incoming. I usually say just incoming players, but obviously Enzo Maresca is the incoming manager as well. I am a huge Pep Guardiola fan. I think having someone like Maresca, who was kind of cut from that cloth, managed under him, bald-headed, like the whole thing,
shockingly similar. Yeah,
I do think Man City is well positioned with that replacement, but let's be honest, the gap from Pep Guardiola to literally anyone else in the world is massive. So where do we think with Maresca and Elliot Anderson? Obviously, is another big incoming transfer. What are our expectations with those two new bodies, in the squad or on the bench?
I mean, Anderson's there to be, kind of fuel in the engine room. Maresca's running a double pivot. Maybe we get back to that if we talk about the Arsenal game again. But I think he may very well run the same or a similar system against Bournemouth. And it'll be interesting to see. It's actually kind of opportune. I was telling one of the other City supporters, well, I mean, if there's any upside or any silver lining, which it's hard to see when after seeing that performance, it really was eviscerating and disemboweling. Maybe let's run it back. Let's see that system. Let's see Maresca's system against, not to insult Bournemouth. Look, Bournemouth
are not Arsenal.
We're gonna get into fears. I sincere, and I'm not just placating you. There are sincere fears about Bournemouth, particularly how City showed up last weekend. But let's see what the system looks like against a good, but maybe not world-class, top-tier, top 4 or 5 team club in the world level, and see how that goes. Because there's some things, but here's where I get pessimistic. There were things that were happening against Arsenal that had nothing to do with Arsenal being Arsenal. There were 2 pivots in front of the back line, and yet Arsenal seemed to have all this time on the edge of the box to pick out their passes. What's the point of having a double pivot? Anderson and Kovacic, and these are fit. These guys are known for their tenacity, and they just weren't closing down. In terms of the incoming, I think that Anderson is going to, the number is a little bit, that number and I guess we'll probably get to it eventually, but that number in contradistinction with Rodri, I mean, I was owl headed. I full blown exorcisted my head. I don't understand. I clearly don't understand anything about football.
I don't know about where these numbers come from anymore. These numbers are just, I can't fathom why and how some of these numbers are. Obviously, with Anderson, I do think some of it is the quote unquote English tax, of course. But that being said, let's take a look at their outgoing players, and obviously we've already spoken about the manager. Yeah. The thing that I noticed, more than anything, obviously every squad is going to bring in players, lose players. Man City has traditionally done pretty well in terms of keeping their younger, great players and letting the aging players move on, even if they still have something left in the tank. You look at like a De Bruyne who went on and did well at Napoli until he had some injuries. But
sometimes we end up bringing them back.
Yeah,
seem to have a habit of that.
But what I've noticed this season is everyone seems to be a central spine player. So obviously Pep Guardiola is the man. But you lose Bernardo Silva to Real Madrid. You lose John Stones, although he was hurt, much of last year, a big time center back. Nathan Ake.
Player. Yeah.
You lose Rodri, obviously. You lost, I don't really consider it much of a loss for this season, but also Akanji, who was out on loan, and now that transfer has been made and then, official.
Maybe the weirdest one is Reinders.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw flashes.
I grew up as an AC Milan fan. I still follow them. I thought Reinders was an incredible player. He had a good World Cup as well. As a supporter
of the Dutch national team, I was really happy when we landed. I thought,
and I thought it was pretty good business too. I mean, of course, the upside on what they bought him for could have really multiplied. But
and he was a Pep style player, and for the life of me, I don't see how he's not a Maresca style player. So very odd that at this stage of his career, he would cash in for the Saudi league. That's really weird.
I mean, I
mean, the numbers are stupid.
I was going to say, you say what you want about, loyalty or trying to stay at the highest level, i.e. Champions League. I think most players would agree that that's the be-all, end-all, at least in the club game. But when that suitcase of cash is coming across the table,
I'm not saying no.
No, sure. Exactly. That is literal, not just life-changing money for you, but generational wealth.
Of course.
I always look back to the comments that Oscar made when he left Chelsea to go to China, and him, his kids, his grandkids, his great grandkids, they never have to work a day in their life.
Yeah.
And I actually admire the fact that he came out and said it. I said, no, sure. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is why I'm playing, is to support my family, and there it is. Yeah. But yeah, so Man City have lost almost all central players. Obviously varying amounts of playing time last season, but where do they go from here with that much of a hole now in their squad?
Well, they're trying to bleed in some of the youth. Obviously, I think you're going to see people like Rico Lewis have and O'Reilly have more prominent roles. And then we're going to have to look at the transfer market, and obviously Anderson's supposed to come in there and be in the engine room. I find the Kovacic thing that can't be sustainable. He's just not bringing enough to it. Short answer: if you look at the net out to in, our the player we're most the biggest win was supposed to be was the guy from Lille.
He got Troy, right? He went from Troy, and then he got loaned back out, I believe, right?
He's with Lille. He's 18 years old.
Yeah,
and we're going to throw $100 million at the kid, I think. Baouadi.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Moroccan kid. So he's really going to be he's seen as the next step in the Fernandinho, Rodri, Baouadi continuum. Apparently, if you want to really go back, you could throw out a Gareth Bale or one of those other central midfielders. But it's not Gareth Bale. Gareth Barry.
Yeah.
So I mean, that would be. But he's 18. So there was even talk about City loaning him back to Lille, acquiring him, and then loaning him back to Lille because he's a kid.
Yeah.
And he offers at this point. I guess a little bit like he's a little bit more like Fernandinho than Rodri. Really defensive minded. I think we're going to see a lot of minutes from him. Though, and so that kind of speaks to, if you want to start with sort of the satellite view of what you're talking about, everything is pointing to this being I'm going to say volatile only because I think it's going to be a very unstable season.
Sure.
For Man City, I think it's going to be very hard for them to find consistency for the exact
For the record, I misspoke. I was referring to Ditorbe from Troy that they have since already loaned out, the 19-year-old left winger. So. Yeah. But yeah, it's very odd. Obviously Bernardo Silva, I believe, went on a free. Stones went on a free. Ake,
free agent.
Yeah. Ake was not a huge transfer. I think it was like 11, 15, something like that. Let me see if I can track it real quick. 15. No, that's a kanji. Ake was 8.17 million euros.
Yeah,
and then
Fenerbahce, right?
To Fenerbahce. Yep. And then obviously the big elephant in the room is. We could mention James Trafford, although I don't think he was going to factor in too much behind Donnarumma, but that's big money as well.
It's big. It was big money to Leeds. A lot of the fans were really excited about it.
Yeah.
The name was kind of fun as well. But that first match, I mean, the Community Shield were like, holy cow.
Yeah.
This is not good.
No, Donnarumma, I again, as a supporter of the Italian national team as well, when I'm not watching the U.S., Donnarumma has the highest of highs, but he has some absolutely appalling matches. Yeah. And I do think both the first two goals on Sunday, I don't think they should have been saves, but they easily could have been saved.
I mean, he's going to stay. It's going to keep him up nights, both of them. And you'd imagine a quote unquote top flight keeper. You got to keep at least one of them out. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right. And then finally, the last outgoing is Rodri.
Yeah.
60 million euros. I think that figures out to about 75, 80 million American dollars. Thoughts on Rodri going to first rumored to be going to Real Madrid and now to Barcelona. What's the story from a Man City fan on that?
I think we're all feeling a little dizzy and lightheaded. It's how much more okay, on the one hand, I know any Man City, any non-Man City supporter in the world is going to be crocodile tears. I get it. I understand, rightfully so to an extent. But starting without Pep and without Rodri, I mean, this is really a clean slate. And that's what it looked like last weekend, that's for sure. But to speak specifically to the deal, as I was saying earlier, I don't understand the business of football maybe at all anymore. I mean, Trafford to Leeds, 45 million, right? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what percentage. Well, it's actually very close. Isn't 45 bang on 75% of 60?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, it's like Trafford, 75% the player of Rodri?
Yeah.
In what universe? And then you're bringing...
No, you're not wrong at all.
Anderson, twice the value of Rodri? I know Rodri's 30. He's 30, but it's 30. CDMs are sort of like...
I do think Rodri, much like Fernandinho before him, they and we talked about this a bit on our regular podcast on Monday, was the skill set that Rodri has. He's not flashy. He just does his job. The shirt tucked in, like it's nothing that necessarily shows up on the score sheet of just how good he is. Yes, I know he's a Ballon d'Or winner. He won a World Cup. He's won everything there is to win. But I think for a lot of fans, I honestly think they think it's as good business to get 60 million euros for a 30-year-old midfielder who's got some injury issues now.
Yeah.
Not that we go back and forth. Like, does Man City need to sell? No. But obviously they also have, I forgot what the new name is. It's not PSR anymore, but the new, regulations to keep the books even, so they have to balance that in the face of bringing in Elliot Anderson. Does Rodri have enough left in the tank to do what Maresca wants him to do? That is the question. Or was the question. Now, clearly, we have an answer.
My guess would have been yes. I mean, because he's going into a system in Barcelona that is as intense gang pressing.
Sure.
I mean, it's incredibly intense.
Hansi Flick is incredible. Well, Rodri's incredibly wild with that style.
Rodri's not about to have an easier job than he had here. I mean, I know that there's comparisons to him cruising into sort of the Busquets role. That was a very different system.
Yeah.
Busquets was almost like a pivot version of Messi, just sort of cruising around.
And Busquets was also pre Hansi Flick. Yeah. So that was under Xavi, that was under Koeman, that was under I'm trying to think of who was there before. Luis Enrique was there. Yeah. So that was certainly a different style than what Hansi Flick is doing at Barcelona now.
But it's like I was going to say, like what we've seen over the last 10, 15 years, the CDM, the central defensive midfielder, the sort of, the pivot, they've almost aged a little bit like the way NFL quarterbacks have started to, where if you just see the game two steps beyond everybody else, you can lose a step and still be a step ahead.
Yeah.
Whereas like like a quarterback in American football, you see the defense and you can just ping pong, and and you don't have to be Mr. Mobile Athletic or whatever. Right. That's sort of like a Rodri. I mean, you talked about the things that don't show up in the box score or whatever. Watch the basically all 22 view of the field. He
knows where to be, when to be there,
cutting off every pass, and that's why you see every time when City were at their absolute best, when they were literally world beaters, they looked vastly more pedestrian to the point of looking bang on pedestrian without Rodri.
Yeah.
And so, he's sort of like, one of the most obvious. I mean, it's a totally different team with him out. Obviously, Anderson, incredible engine. Does he have the creativity, dynamism, moving to play the right ball every single time, to the right foot, at the right pace, at the right time, when to drop? I mean, understanding game management the way that Rodri did, it's hard for me to imagine. Kovacic is not going to be filling anyone's shoes. Again, I think they're just waiting for the Moroccan kid to show up and maybe find his feet. But I think it's going to be a huge step down. I think no Pep, and Rodri. That's the other thing. Rodri was, almost like an animatronic. And I hate to objectify him in this way, but I mean, he was Pep's brain on the field.
Yeah.
He was just Pep's brain with a pair of feet out on the field. And, now we don't have any of that.
Right.
So it's a problem.
Well, so let's move on to exactly that. Where do we think this starting 11 goes now? In the absence of a Rodri, in the absence of Bernardo, Ake, Silva, and obviously without Pep, what does Maresca do week 1, match day 1? Are there, obviously you're much more in tune to the Man City fandom than I am. Is there any chance that Donnarumma does not start based on the heels of last week's performance?
That's a good question. Short answer, no. I think they got to give him at least this game.
They do seem to be very high on this Rulli kid.
He's no kid.
I thought he was pretty young. No,
I think he's already 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, from Marseille, right? He's been doing this
where am I here?
For a minute.
Well, while I'm looking at, where else? Any surprises that you might see in the?
So I think he rolls the double pivot back out.
Oh, 34! Holy cow! Yeah. All right then.
I think he rolls the double pivot back out. Oh, by the way, Nico Gonzalez may be out the door as well.
There you go.
Another guy who could fill one of those roles, but I think he's probably gone. So I think Donnarumma's in there. You got Diaz, and then I think everyone else playing a position that they're not great at. I mean, I don't think he's going to go with the 3 with the wings again, or try to play that way and push O'Reilly up again. I don't see that happening again. I do see a possibility of, we'll see how he rolls it out. But I think you're going to have, Diaz, Gvardiol, who, by the way, favorite piece of trivia.
You've told me this once before. I know exactly where you're going.
Yes, that his name is Pep Guardiola in his language, which is wild.
Yes.
He doesn't play anything like him.
Yes. Josep Guardiola and Josko Gvardiol. Yeah. Essentially in their native languages is the same exact name. Yes.
Yeah. But unfortunately not the same on the pitch. But I mean, in terms of surprises, I was sort of toying around with some ideas. I mean, I think there's going to be, Maresca does like to invert and to create an overflow in the midfield, which is why I was thinking Rico Lewis. I think the biggest question is whether or not he goes with Kusanov or Rico Lewis in the right back position.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think that'll really let you know how he's going at the game. And but I think someone dynamic is going to end up in there. In the Arsenal match, actually Gvardiol was getting forward constantly.
I noticed that.
And so he was doing what I think a Rico Lewis could be doing next game. But again, if he plays Kusanov again, I think it will be Gvardiol again making those runs. And Gvardiol's going to have, may have one of the toughest physical challenges coming up, other than Anderson, in that he's going to be expected to come in there, overflow, create mismatches in the midfield, and then we'll get to I'm sure we'll get to some strategy on Bournemouth's end. I think Rose is going to be salivating at countering in those spaces.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if obviously there are no gimmies in the Premier League. But do Man City and does Maresca still take some time these first few games to maybe still do a little bit of experimentation? I hope so. Let's not
experiment one.
Let's not gloss over the fact that Man City had the most players at the World Cup this summer. Always in a World Cup year or following the World Cup season, you're going to have the slow starts. And that may also include Arsenal. They had a good chunk of players. Mm-hmm. Crystal Palace had a lot of players. So we can't underestimate that and the rest that some of these players need. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's going to be, in my opinion, 5 or 6 matches for Man City of struggle, of experimentation, and I've never been so excited, to have the opening match of the season be at the Etihad, but. I think
this is the year to do
now,
it.
This is the year to do it. This is the time to have it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's going to be a real choppy ride, maybe all the way through till, beyond our Thanksgiving. I think between Thanksgiving, I don't think things are going to settle into a system and a lineup, before Thanksgiving and maybe even up until Christmas.
We can obviously chat more, as the season goes as well, beyond just the Bournemouth match. But at what point, if they're still struggling, do we start to see, Maresca out? Thoughts? Is it that first international window, the September-October window, which is now extended this season for the first time ever?
Yeah.
Is it the festive season? Is it that winter transfer window? What is the how long of a leash does Maresca have here?
Well, all right. I wish I could give a definitive answer, but I'm gonna hedge and qualify this 5 different ways. But I don't think there's any other way to answer it honestly. So first off the bat, I'm gonna just I'll just throw a pie at the elephant in the room. If the results continue to be anything remotely resembling what happened at Arsenal, you're gonna hear it from the fans, and they'll be chirping in the papers. Things are going to start leaking if it's that bad. I think the fans first of all, the fans are absolutely desperate for this to work. Right. So there's not a sense of real unease of commitment on the fan side. Mm-hmm. Right. As you alluded to earlier, Maresca is a great choice to an extent. I think that the board is going to have a lot more patience than the stands.
Sure.
And it's going to come down to results is going to be huge. And I think look, say what you want about what percentage of the Etihad on any given week is filled by, tourists who have come to see Holland. Sure. Okay. I go to a lot of games, every year, and there are, the majority of the stadium are still diehards, that go back to Main Road, as I do, and all that kind of stuff. And I think I'm 48. I started supporting City in 82. Long story, but so I've been through it. And anyone my age, and up, of course, and even down into their late 30s, have lived with just, unless you're literally in your teens or 20s. Most of us have a recollection of what the standard used to be, and we never dreamt of anything like this.
Sure.
And the least we can do, I'll speak for myself.
Not to interrupt you, but a lot of those fans have never seen Man City not in the Premier League, which was a pretty lengthy spell where they were not in the first division of English football.
Trust me, I remember well. The New York Times used to show the Premier League scores on in the sports section on Tuesdays. And when City weren't in the Premier League, I used to have to make phone calls across the pond to get scores. So, yes, I think that people of my generation who are fans going back to the 80s, we would just we'd have to be the most spoiled brats in the world, and we would look like nothing but unadulterated spoiled brats if we started throwing our hands up, grandpa shaking his fist at the sky, if the first couple of months, after Pep Guardiola and Rodri's departure and Silva's departure and Stones' departure, we start, complaining and hemming and hawing and whatever. I think we're going to be there for the team. I think people are going to support the shirt and give Maresca a lot of, you were asking about, how much, leeway on the leash. Yep. I think a lot. I think that given the level of success and enjoyment, let's bring it down to just a fan emotional level, the amount of joy that this team has given us for so long. Any thinking person knows that this is not, sustainable ad nauseum.
And this is not a quick fix.
No. This is going to be a real cultural change. And, you could talk all about, the money makes it a lot easier to catch more lightning in more bottles, right? But we did catch lightning in a bottle several times over. But we've had success with several managers, so Mancini, Pellegrini, yeah. So I think I think that we'll be giving him some leniency, but the results, even if we're getting draws, even if we're getting close losses, if we look dynamic, if players are emerging, look like they have a role, if it just looks like there's some sort of cohesion plan, some sort of hope that, okay, I think they can turn a corner here. Obviously, Community Shield, we're just going to hit the reset button because that was just an absolute
pretend it didn't happen and move on. What worries you? I know you mentioned, you alluded to Marco Rose a little bit and high press and countering. Anything specifically from a player standpoint that worries you from this Bournemouth squad against Man City?
100%. Now, I haven't watched Bournemouth's. I didn't scout their summer friendlies and stuff, but I am aware of, I know what Rose is dedicated to, and what he's dedicated to is going to be a real problem for City in week one, because what we just saw against Arsenal was complete incoherence in the midfield. We saw, I was mentioning it earlier, we were missing 4-yard balls behind players. It's just wrong foot, wrong. Kovacic, who's like the just consummate professional. He might not do anything flashy unless he actually absolutely scorches a ball from 30 yards. But, he's usually, a real grinder who wants to, play, low risk, low reward balls, and he was missing people everywhere. So what's the point here? Rose likes to play a very intense man marking system. He's going to try and overcompensate with energy and tenacity where there may be a gap in technical ability to some extent. And Bournemouth are going to be right up City's ass immediately. So all of those, the grace and distance that Arsenal were able to give because they had the confidence of bossing the game, countering, doing what they wanted to do when they wanted to. After 10 minutes, you realize they could do almost whatever they wanted on the field. So there's no need for them to huff and puff and, nip at everyone's heels. Bournemouth, they're going to be, first of all, they see blood in the water, as you said. Yeah. I mean, what a great thing to give their fans if they could come out there and get a draw or something like that. Or dream for maybe they get a win. I don't know. I can definitely see it happening. So I think that the problems that we saw against Arsenal are going to be exacerbated. I think that's going to also keep Maresca with a double pivot. And I think we're going to see, whether it's, I think it's could end up being Gvardiol, or if he does end up playing Rico Lewis on the other side, Rico Lewis maybe comes into that role, maybe an O'Reilly situation to overrun. But then that is going to leave pockets open. And oh my word, did we look like absolute Keystone cops back there when we were exposed with just 3, and Silva just seemed to not know where to tell anyone to go. So it was like, back to American football metaphors, like having a quarterback who didn't know where the wide receivers were going. Right. It just was like, what is going on?
Yeah, no, it looked, you saw walking to backtrack. It was really a very City.
As a Bournemouth supporter, you can tell me the two things that what I see. There's two things that the thing that worries me the most when I just sort of did the most casual scouting. Was the center back. Rose likes to have the center back kind of overplay. He will sometimes skip the center back will sometimes play balls that skip the midfield completely. They just brought him in. What's this guy's name? Center back for Bournemouth.
Silva. Right, Silva?
Yes.
Yeah, from the Portuguese league. Yeah,
Antonio Silva. I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Antonio Silva bypassing the midfield and pinging balls on the wings to. Do you have Tavernier?
I don't know. Tav's been looking good in the summer. I do think he'll probably wind up getting the start. But
Ryan is healthy, right?
Ryan, I believe, is healthy.
He is pacey. So here are the two problems. I see again, how did the newest Brazilian last name ending in Son, Ison, end? How's he doing? What is he?
Evan Nielsen.
Yeah.
He actually reminds me a lot of a Olivier Giroud type forward.
Okay.
Where not just hold up play, but he as a pure number 9, he's such a facilitator. So, he works hard off the ball.
Right.
I've never been so happy with a number 9 that, will get maybe 5 or 6 goals a year.
But not blazing pace though.
No, he's got decent pace, but he's not high on. He's not a Krupi, who obviously is out for a few months.
Better then.
But I do think he'll occupy a lot of that, space in the middle though, and allow for whether it's Tavs, whether it's Justin Kluivert, whether it's Ion out wide. That's kind of been that play.
As you just said, I think you're going to see Silva bypassing the midfield, playing up to Evan Nilsson, who can hold the ball, who will then play back, I think, to Kluivert, who I know quite well from being a Dutch supporter. Christie's out, right? So maybe Kluivert takes the role.
They've been
in sort of a creative role in the pocket there.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I see City having problems.
Yeah, no, I think it will be, because let's be honest, obviously we're all high on where Bournemouth is and going, but Marco Rosa is a new manager. He was appointed unofficially back in April, right. But he has no competitive matches for Bournemouth yet. Much like Maresca coming in under Guardiola, it's a very similar style. You go from Andoni Iraola, who is high counter pressing, high energy, to a manager who thrived under the Red Bull system. And when he was at RB Leipzig and when he was at Dortmund, and I believe he was at Mönchengladbach also, I think, but very, very high energy. And that's the style. So I do think it is as close to a seamless transition for management for both sides as you realistically could get. But the proof will be in the pudding. And, match day one is, obviously we're all hopeful. We're all tied for first right now, but
how many players do you anticipate in the starting 11 for Bournemouth being summer transfers or guys who maybe have less?
I think for match day one, I think probably just Silva. I'm trying to think of who else.
Elvin Nielsen's new, no?
No, Elvin Nielsen's been there for a couple seasons.
Oh, he has? Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I think they are going to be very much status quo. Honestly, I'm a little bit worried. This isn't a versus Man City factor, but playing in Europe for the first time, 2 domestic cups. I don't know that we have just the I don't even want to say the depth in terms of quality. We just don't have the bodies, in my opinion.
Especially right now. It's a laundry list of blocks. Yeah.
Again, on the heels of a World Cup where, you got Krupi's out, you have, Tyler Adams is always up and down. I do believe he'll be fit and ready to go. But yeah, there are definitely concerns for me as a Bournemouth fan for, do we push into the Europa League basket and maybe struggle in the Premier League, which we've seen it happen with Newcastle, we've seen it happen with Brighton, we've seen it happen with all these squads that are even Aston Villa one of the years when they were in Europe, they were the mid-table. Spurs and United that year that they played each other in the Europa League final. It's very tough to play midweek and then again on Sunday, especially when you're up against the quality that they have available in the Premier League. So with that, just in good fun, what do we think potential result might be here this weekend?
You're talking to a guy who just watched what happened. I can't. The ceiling is so blurry. I don't know what it looks like. I've only seen the floor, and the floor is god awful.
Yeah, it was not good.
So I mean, I can't even form the words Man City win after seeing that, because I do think that Bournemouth are an ambitious team, and I think that again they're going from strength to strength from a manager standpoint. I think they're going to create problems. As completely disoriented as City looked, I can't see them. I just kept saying upstairs during the game, I can't see them beating anybody the way they played. On Sunday. So I don't know if pushed. I mean, it's the most limp-wristed prediction ever. Nobody likes a 1-1, but I like a 1-1.
I'm with you. I think I want to say I saw a stat that Marco Rosa is the 12th most experienced manager in the Premier League right now in terms of tenure. and he's only been he hasn't managed the team yet in the game. So you have a lot of upheaval. I think there's going to be a ton of wacky score lines in these first few weeks between again, I not to beat a dead horse, but the season, the fall after a World Cup, tons of wacky stuff's going to go on. All these coaching changes, all these players moving around. You have the Saudi factor of these players leaving. You have, I mean, we still have the transfer window still open. So you have all these different factors going on, whether players are actually going to leave or not, or they're just kind of getting tugged along and they're in the shop window. I think a 2-2 draw could be happening just because, defensively, I don't think anyone's going to be up to speed yet, but attacking is I don't want to say it's the easiest thing to do, but natural attackers will find their way in. So
if you've got wing play and really direct play, but you really hit the nail on the head, I think, with the shop window element. And look, I feel bad for any degenerate punters out there who just can't lay off a weekend gambling. This is not the week. This is not the month to I don't think to put any action on any games. The shop window thing, the sort of dangling the sale sign. You're absolutely right. We don't know, we usually find out after the fact that this player was being shopped. You're going to, they're human beings at the end of the day. You're going to see it on the pitch. I mean, how do I know that, that things are in play, to get the Moroccan kid in there as quickly as possible? Kovacic might know that's his future. He knows he's just sort of keeping the boots warm or whatever. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he's not putting in a shift the way that he might otherwise, whatever. And on and on and on. But yeah, I think it's going to be hard for me to see. Maybe one of the few bright spots I see is that one of the bigger injections into Bournemouth is a center half. And so maybe there's a little bit of lack of chemistry there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so maybe Holland can find a pocket there, or Foden can find a pocket there and maybe exploit that. But, I mean, just
well,
nothing looked good.
At any rate, the match day 1 is upon us. Everyone can be as optimistic as possible. Like I said, everyone's tied for first right now. That is going to do it for us today. Zach, thank you so much for giving your Man City insight for us. That match will be Sunday, the 23rd, if I'm correct, at 9 a.m. We will be obviously upstairs watching the match. I certainly will be with my Cherries gear on. And again, thank you for taking some time out of your week to chat the match with us. And we will see you again next week, guys. Cheers.